I've ranked every weapon in Cyberpunk 2077, and in this video, to celebrate hitting 100k subs, I'll be sharing my overall top 10 best. Something that was incredibly difficult to narrow down, given all the different builds we can make, but hopefully this list features something for everyone. From stealthy assassin, netgunner, a Sandevistan samurai, and so much more. So sit back and relax as we dive into probably the 10 greatest weapons in Cyberpunk 2077. Up first is a gun technically from the assault rifle family, but feeling very often more like an LMG. The Hercules 3AX, in fact, actually feels like a hybrid in multiple ways. Firing from the hip will expend bullets towards wherever you're aiming, whilst looking down the sight instead utilizes smart targeting. But unlike with most smart guns, Smart Link isn't actually needed, making this a lot more viable to a wider range of builds. The gun is a very generous 90-round magazine, but does fire 3 bullets at once when fully aiming. Definitely worth pairing with weapons that use a different ammo type, as its main issue is that it utterly devours ammunition, but the spectacular effects are totally worth it. Enemies killed with this weapon erupt into chemical explosions, poisoning the ground around them to spread a green plague of chemical damage to their nearby allies. One of the most explosive, lethal, and memorable guns in the game, though sadly not obtainable until the Roads to Redemption gig, unlocked right near the end of the Phantom Liberty expansion, looted from a crate in one of the side rooms that we head to exclusively for the gig. So make sure not to miss it if you want to spend the rest of your game running around as a plague-spreading menace. Now, there's a few other really decent assault rifles out there, but Hercules is simply in a different league. Another Dogtown special next, this time found down in Longshore stacks amidst this increased criminal activity. By defeating Ross Ulmer, a minor boss, we can loot his storage room, including one of the best tech weapons in the game, Raiju, an iconic Senko LX SMG with a very cool unique ability of shooting through cover without needing to be charged. Tech weapons fire the most powerful shots in the game, but their big drawback is usually taking around a second to first charge up. With that necessity removed here, reactionary burst fire is a much more viable option and speeds up combat a lot. We basically have a regular gun that can get away with clipping nearby objects or just straight up shooting red outlines through walls. Definitely one of the better choices for vehicle combat too, as its unique abilities are ideal for shooting right through cars. And for the tougher enemies where a full magazine is probably still going to be necessary, aiming and charging is still very much a great idea, firing even quicker and often releasing bolt shots for insane extra damage. A brilliant choice for mid to close range combat, with its range of uses making it viable for all types of foes. Whilst Yinglong is a pretty weak gun now by itself, it secures a spot here on account of being one of the best sidearms for players into net running. Since smart guns are fully designed to synergize with Cyberdex since 2.0, they don't really shine much outside of that playstyle. But roll Yinglong into something like my netgunner build from this video, and you've suddenly got one of the best guns in the game again. With the right perks, this thing can restore RAM, deal massively increased damage if paired with stacks of the Cyberware Malfunction hack, as well as of course apply its signature effect, volleys of EMP explosions, which always look spectacular. Factor in that all this comes with the freedom of not really having to aim much, and it's a pretty cushy deal. You just focus on hacking and avoiding damage, letting Yinglong lay down electrical suppressive fire. The smart targeting is also great against Sandevistan users especially, and the subsequent EMPs can even disable that annoying ability. If not running with a Cyberdeck, I'd say choose something else, but if you are, then you can always justify Yinglong as one of your 3 main weapons. Others may have specialist capabilities, but realistically, this one will probably be best to use at least 60% of the time, with the rapid fire as well, even increasing the upload speed of your hacks in the right build. What's more, it can be acquired pretty much whenever after the start of Act 2 by just coming to the suspected crime down in Wellsprings and looting it from Denzel Cryer. Our first non-gun for this video, Agaou is rather an awesome-looking tomahawk with some shocking qualities. Straight up dealing plenty of shock and electrical damage both when thrown and with melee, but by far its standout ability is to trigger an electrical shockwave every time you land a critical throw. Particularly devastating thrown into a group, and perhaps a good accompaniment to Yinglong for something of a Storm Wizard or Thor build. Only thing I will say is that the weapon's recovery time when thrown is much longer than other throwing knives, works, and it's not really viable for a stealthy throwing run. It can still work alongside faster knives, but probably shouldn't be used totally standalone given the long weight gaps. So keep it aside almost as the special heavy attack of your build, whatever else that may consist of. Much like Raiju, this is the primary reward of another Dogtown criminal activity, which this time is the Voodoo Boy base up in Luxor Heights. It's such a cool looking weapon, insanely powerful, and does a great job even for those not really spec'd into throwing perks. Yet another SMG now, and how could I not include Erebus, our deadly Blackwall haunted gun, whose main specialty is full-on shutting down enemies once they hit 33% health, triggering the terrifying Blackwall visuals and the most chilling screams ever. This 33% rule even applies to the likes of MaxTac, which given their very high health pools can save you a ton of time and ammunition. Even if you drop them down to that with another weapon, just one shot from Erebus is all it takes to then finish the job. Additionally, its small chance to upload Cyberware Malfunction 2 is another way for it to weaken enemies with higher health. Plus, the evil lines the gun often comes out with adds a little extra flavor when playing. Of course, this one too is more of a high-powered endgame weapon, which to be fair a lot of you won't even get your hands on. It first requires the read path to be taken in Phantom Liberty, then you need to make sure not to miss the crafting spec down in Cynosure or the behavioral component at the end, after which you'll have to choose to craft it over the Kanto Cyberdeck, which itself can make an awesome Blackwall Demon netrunner build. Despite all these difficulties though, it's undeniably one of the most powerful guns in the game. Maybe not worth angling your whole playthrough toward getting, but certainly worth the extra effort at least if you're choosing the read path anyway. But what kind of ranking would this be if it didn't include at least one of the blades? Now, a lot of these are good contenders with different benefits depending on your playstyle. Scalpel and Errata are both particular standouts, but in the end, I've got to hand it still to Byakko for its unmatched speed in taking down groups of enemies. Not only does it come with leap attacks straight out of the box, but one kill will totally unlock the weapon's speed. Usually, these things swing in a triple arc before taking a short pause, but Byakko, in the right situation, just keeps on going. Of course, you want to combo this with a Sandevistan, and doing so essentially allows us to create that classic thing where a samurai draws their sword, and a split second later, every enemy just drops down dead. I've done a whole build video on this method that was actually so powerful as to get it nerfed in 2.1, but it's still definitely worth trying and is still at about 80% of its former power. Again, Byakko can technically be acquired pretty early into Act 2, with the only prerequisite being to complete all of Wakako's gigs around Westbrook. The definitive best sword, I would say, with the only exception being in boss fights devoid of lower level grunts. After all, this blade is hungry for blood, and can't unlock its true potential until it tastes some. Basically, it doesn't do the fast swinging until you kill someone. Debatably, the best melee weapon though is actually one of the arm cyberwares. Gorilla arms benefit from the blunt weapon tree, but given we're technically dual wielding them, they have a very significant increase in speed. Faster, on paper, than Byakko even, though not quite, because I don't think that factors in Byakko's unlocked speed. Even still, gorilla arms have additional benefits. If you spec into the blunt tree with them, you can also unlock the Quake perk, which in this instance basically translates to a Hulk smash that can be done straight into enemy crowds. Having them equipped also adds an additional 6 points to our body attributes, which is an absolute lifesaver when it comes to passing certain strength checks to open doors. They're also immensely helpful for Beat on the Brats, as they literally can't stop us from using them. And being an arm cyberware, they don't even take up one of the 3 main weapon slots. Now, sure, a netrunner say may want to use a monowire, and there are reasons to use any of the arm cyberwares, but these overall are the most powerful, I'd say, with the most utility. They can of course be bought from any ripper with a choice of having a bleed, burn, shock, or poison chance, or potentially you might just loot them out in the world, but ultimately very straightforward to get from as early as level 10. Shotguns are of course close quarters powerhouses, especially in 2.0, and whilst there's a lot of great contenders in this class, for this list I've got to hand it to the shotgun that can also fire through walls. The only tech variant of the class, the Satara. It may suffer from that same tech thing of needing to charge to penetrate cover, but given we can also cover ourselves from our enemies whilst doing so, that kind of cancels out. These are pretty common around the world, but the crafting spec can also be bought from Vista del Rey. Of course, being a non-iconic gun, the only non-iconic on this list, it also comes with the ability to add mods, and that kind of relates to why it's an entry. You see, Neil is a pretty rare shotgun mod that can, with a little refreshing, be bought from vendors. It adds a 25% chance to instantly kill an enemy when shooting them in the leg. In actuality though, this pretty much works always and is almost too good. And obviously combining insta-kill leg shots with the ability to shoot through walls makes for the most powerful shotgun in the game. And maybe one day they'll patch it out, but I've mentioned this exploit several times now and it's still a thing, so hopefully it stays that way. Just in case it doesn't though, let me also mention the iconic variant of this, Brick's Shotgun Order, which can be bought from the stadium. Not as powerful right now as you can see, and with a much longer charge time up to 3 seconds. However, it will vaporize anyone in front of it at just 66% of its maximum charge. Plus, as someone pointed out in my last video on legs, we can use it to get even more jumps from the reinforced tendons. Double jump air dashing before firing this gun will reset both the tendons and the dash, allowing an additional one of each and letting us jump slightly longer distances to potentially clear a few more gaps. If you're more the type to play in stealthy mode, then this entry is probably for you. A silenced pistol is the most effective ranged thing for stealth in the game, and there's a number of powerful options that do a great job, such as Her Majesty, which is very easy to acquire and is straight up given to us during Phantom Liberty. However, there's quite definitively a best here, but you will have to first complete the Sun ending in order to get it. Pride can be picked up from the arena room, and afterwards will be awarded back at the point of no return. It deals some of the highest base damage of all the pistols, but also comes with multiple multipliers to push that even higher, including a 150% headshot damage multiplier, which when we're above 75% health actually increases all the way to 400%, a health level we should be at when in stealth mode. There's also 100% extra crit damage and bonus damage to elite skull level enemies, meaning yes, they are also liable to get one-shotted with this gun. Combining it with a tier 5 Cetus silencer then adds an additional 150% stealth damage and gives stealthy headshots a 100% crit chance, guaranteeing that 100% crit damage. So yes, by the time you've completed the Sun ending, this gun, without too much effort, becomes the single best weapon for stealth, statistically. There's other methods that work great too, but whenever using a late game stealth build, I'd always recommend taking this in reserve. And if you don't have it yet, then just use Her Majesty instead, or prior to that, a silenced Niue or Tamayura. Before the final entry though, I just want to throw in a few honourable mentions for some more awesome weapons that I think are at least worth bringing to your attention. This was an incredibly tough and somewhat subjective list trying to encompass the best weapons for most players, but there's always going to be builds that benefit more from something else. With that in mind, Archangel Kara Eurodyne's revolver is probably the best of that class in the game overall, and an excellent centerpiece to any gunslinger build. Revolvers sit somewhere between pistols and shotguns, but the fact that most of them can't be silenced anymore sort of pushes them into the camp of weaker open combat weapon, which are more of a faff to aim. That said, Archangel is a very fun choice, and I do feel very bad not including it in the main list. Then we have Buzzsaw, a power SMG that can also shoot through walls and can be looted early on from this suspected crime here in Northside. It's a fantastic, if volatile hybrid of power and tech that can easily carry you shooting through the walls of most of the game, but eventually I would say is beaten by the more accurate, more versatile Raiju. After that, the Shingen Mark V, looted from a container in the Arasaka Industrial Park, is generally nothing too special, but in a very specific build, does become the most powerful piece of kit ever. I'm talking, of course, about the Crowd Killer Netrunner build, proccing Contagion onto huge groups of enemies, then applying a flame effect from this to violently explode them all in the space of a couple seconds. It's definitely one of my favourite builds, but does does get pretty specific. Check it out in this video. The Guts shotgun also gets a mention here, not only because it belonged to Rebecca, but more simply because of its utility in parkour. In the same way Order can be used to extend jumping horizontally, Guts can boost jumps vertically when combined with fortified ankles. Just look at the ground and hip fire a split second after jumping to be propelled to previously unattainable heights. And the final honourable mention here is the projectile launcher. This is mostly for use in scenarios involving vehicles like police chases or mega showdowns with law enforcement and MaxTac, because the projectile system is second to none when it comes to exploding enemy cars. If used with its relic perk to fire multiple shots at once, you can take down entire squads of police and gangs before they even leave the vehicle. And since 2.1 made random gang drive-bys a lot more common, the ability to do this feels pretty damn awesome. For the final entry of my top 10 though, I've got to hand it to the best sniper in the game. If Pride is point for point the most powerful stealth gun, then Breakthrough is, all things considered, probably the most powerful non-stealth gun. Snipers, on the whole, are a ridiculously OP weapon class, and most of them can drop a max tacker with just a few headshots, with being far away also a major advantage for our own protection. Admittedly, they're not optimal in all scenarios. There's plenty of smaller environments where a sniper isn't the best choice, but shot for shot, they are generally one-shots and save a lot on ammo, but I suppose also demand some of the best accuracy, though that at least is where Breakthrough isn't such a problem. As a tech sniper, it can penetrate several feet of solid material, devolving into a game of shoot the red outlines. But much like Raiju, this gun does not require a lengthy charge, or really any charge, in order to do that, meaning yes, some form of quickscoping is still viable. And of course, this is much more powerful than Raiju. In fact, combining these two pretty much ensures we're set in any environment at any range. Plus, Breakthrough has the generally power weapon exclusive ability to also ricochet, with shots continuing to rebound after first firing through something. The projectile is practically unstoppable basically, and I imagine has got to be fired with the greatest momentum out of every weapon in the game. And best of all, Breakthrough is very easy to obtain, dropped by a 6th Street boss at the suspected crime in Rancho Coronado, just down here. With all 10 of these weapons then, you should have at least one good item for a huge variety of builds. Now I know there's plenty of great weapons out there, so apologies if your favourites didn't make it in here, but comment below what it is and why it's so great. I have of course produced separate ranking videos for all these different types of weapons, so go watch those as well if you're interested in a particular one or particular class. They're all timestamped so you can seek out whichever you're looking for. This has been a very special video for me to make, and is a celebration of this channel hitting 100,000 subs. I picked this whole thing back up in October 2022, shortly after Edgerunners, and since then it's been a big staple part of my life. I've been reading your comments literally every day since then, and you guys are so positive and funny, and honestly, the amount I've probably learned just reading your feedback is part of the reason we've hit this major milestone today. A very special thanks, of course, goes to the patrons for going the extra mile to support the channel, providing me with the ability to take risks and spend more time on the beefier videos without worrying so much about scheduling, or vice versa, updating old videos for the sake of maintaining accurate info, even if some of those aren't gonna do quite as well. With that said, thank you very much for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I have lots more ideas to come. Plenty more Cyberpunk, but also Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring, and more. I'm Bram, and have a great day.